It's another high school football night coming up in Westmoreland County. Of course, for the second straight year, it'll be in June as we get ready for the Foothills Football Classic. Good evening and welcome to the Foothills Classic Preview Show, sponsored by the Collision Shop by Jason Mignon. Mike Zappone here along with Jimmy Lee Santorella, and we're joined by three special guests from the Westmoreland County Coaches Association, of course the organization that puts on the Foothills Football Classic. Last year, they resurrected it with the game at Norwin. This year, it will be at Hempfield High School tomorrow night, 7 o'clock kickoff, and we'll have the pregame starting at 6:30 right here on WHJB Classic Hits 107.1. We're joined now here by Larry Solito, of course, the president of the Westmoreland County Coaches Association. Tim Sweeney, the head coach at Derry Area High School, is one of the all-star coaches in tomorrow night's game. He'll be coaching the Red Squad. And Roy Hall, of course, the head coach of the state champion Jeanette Jayhawks. He'll be coaching the Blue Squad in tomorrow night's game. So, Larry, let's start things off with you with this year's game. And what a difference it probably is to already have the blueprint in place now that you got it all together on almost short notice last year, and now you've had a whole year to get ready, and I'm sure it's a well-oiled machine now.
We're certainly hoping so. We've been working on this since really the day after last year's All-Star game, and it's just kind of built up steam over time, and I think everybody that comes Friday night will be very pleased with the product on the field. We've got some very, very talented athletes, very good kids to work with, and great coaching staffs that were put together for the game on Friday night.
Now, I know last year a lot of it was on short notice. You had to get a lot of kids ready to come play in that game, and sometimes that led to some different scheduling conflicts. This year, knowing it was coming up, was it an easier process to kind of get everybody lined up for the game this year as opposed to last year?
It's somewhat easier. We had fewer kids that originally decided not to play. We've had a couple kids just recently over the last week who've made that decision, unfortunately. But for the most part, moving it back a week really helped because of some of the delayed graduation times that some of the high schools in the county have had.
So tell me about some of the feedback from last year's game. Obviously favorable because it carried over into having it for a second consecutive year. What was some of the feedback you got from players, coaches, and what were you able to bring forward this year based off the feedback?
The feedback has all been positive. We've heard very, very, very little negative about the stadium over in Norwin, the game itself, how the boys, last year that played were treated. There was very little, if any. I've gotten nothing but positive, which has helped us to build. And we've met as committees to tweak some things to make it a little bit different this year, but not to break anything, because if it's not broke, you don't fix it.
Right.
We're going to go with some of the success that we had last year and kind of build on it.
Tell me about any of the tweaks that you can reveal before kickoff time. Any tweaks with format or anything else?
No, format will remain the same. A lot of it is more personnel because last year we had 75 kids between the two squads. This year we have 61. My apology on that. 61 kids. So we're a little bit lighter, but I've been told that this was a lighter senior class countywide. So next year we're looking for higher numbers once again. But the kids that we have are some of the top kids we really believe here in the county.
And what has been the as far as the build-up with ticket sales, those kinds of things? Everything pretty good momentum.
Pretty good momentum up to this point. Yes, we've got some things going on. The Dunkin' Donuts fundraiser with all 19 teams on the mug. We've got a 50-50 ticket that will go off on Friday night that we've been selling pretty much for the last 3 months. So we've got some things going that'll help to build up our scholarship fund for the student athletes here in Westmoreland County.
So tell us about the scholarship fund and how's it work? How many people get scholarships every year?
It varies. This year for 2017 for this year, we gave out 14 scholarships. to needy individuals or scholar athletes here in Westmoreland County, and that's the highest that we've done. Our hope is every year to increase it by 1 or 2 or increase the amount, because the cost of college is also going up, so we want to try to compensate the best we can. And each individual is blindly selected based on number 1, income, family income, number 2 on grades, number 3 on community service, and then sports is the last thing that we utilize as a criteria to judge all the candidates that come through.
So, and that's something new that I hadn't even heard of, is the scholarship fund. That's I would assume your biggest fundraising.
That's our primary purpose.
Yeah, great. So everything, including proceeds, any proceeds that
Any
might come from the
proceeds,
game.
everything goes directly to the scholarship funds and helps us to build so that our numbers get higher and we're able to access more from one end of the county to the other.
So before we get to the coaches and some of the nuts and bolts of preparing for the game this week, if you could just recap ticket prices and what people can, how people can get a hold of tickets tomorrow before game time.
If they contact either myself or Holly Guerrieri, our secretary, they can pre-order tickets and we'll have them waiting for them at the gate. Otherwise, walk-ups are generally the way to go at this point.
And what's the phone number they can reach you guys?
They can reach me at area code 412-491-1212.
Hempfield this year, is that the goal, is to rotate it on a year-to-year basis? Or?
Well, actually what happened, Mike, was that we ran into a scheduling conflict with the date and what was going on in Norman. They had a very big fundraiser going on there the same day that same Friday night that we wanted to have the football game. So we had to kind of move some things around. So we agreed and met with the folks over at Hempfield, and they were kind enough to offer us their facility for the game. And then next year when we start planning the game, we'll decide whether we want to stay at Hempfield and go flip back and forth, or go back to Norwin for a year. They're our 2 biggest venues in the county, and they're both so centrally located that access to them from anywhere in the county or even Allegheny County, it really isn't an issue.
Great. So head coach of the Red Squad this year, Tim Sweeney, head coach also at Derry Area High School. Tim, to be a part of this organization, and you see the great cause in giving scholarship money to student athletes from within the county, and it seems to just continue to build and grow momentum, the Coaches Association, and bringing everybody together in the county. What have you seen in your couple of years as head coach at Derry, getting involved in this organization and what it does for people?
When I was hired at Derry back in 2014, Bo Ruffner reached out to me and said, "Hey Tim, it'd be very important for you to join the WCCA," which I followed in Bo's advice and joined. And I think I've maybe missed 1 or 2 meetings, one of the quarterly meetings that they've had. And the organization has been such a success because of Larry Solito and his leadership that he provides. And it's way beyond football. When we talk about the Westmoreland County Coaches Association, wrestling, the track events, the swimming and diving, and everything that they do, just about every sport, I think there's some sort of support and fundraising activity that the organization does to raise that scholarship money. So as a coach, and I think I would speak of anybody who's in coaching, whatever sport, you're privileged to work with high school athletes and to be part of an organization like this that is giving out the scholarship money that they do on an annual basis. How can you say no to that?
Roy, you've been in the association for a longer period of time with your involvement with Jeanette High School. How have you seen it kind of evolve over the last several years in particular?
Well, I mean, since Larry has taken over the organization, you could just see it just growing and growing, and I see there's more and more coaches. I mean, like when we have our meetings, I mean, we almost have a representative from each school in the whole county, and I just think it's just fantastic the way that we support the scholarships. And like you said, it's not just all the sports, but it's they help with the sports, which that's what grants the scholarships.
And I know you guys have had the camp session that they did in May. You do some of those, the 7-on-7, some of those sorts of things as well. How has the Coaches Association been able to really push the game forward and promote the game and maybe be an asset to the game of football locally, high school football here?
Well, I'm going to say this, and I'm not just saying it because Larry's sitting here. Mm-hmm. This would not get off the ground if it was not for Larry, and I think Tim even said that too. I mean, yeah, I always say it's like, you know, it's like coaching. You know, people come Friday nights and want to be the judge and executioner. They're not there. They're not there during the week, and they're not there all season, all what Larry does and everything. I mean, and I just think it's tremendous. And I mean, it's going to help not just to publicize what the Westmoreland County Coach Association does, but how they help people with the scholarship, student athletes.
Tim, is there a benefit to having all the coaches on one page when it comes to advancing the sport? Because it's a challenge out there now. You have a lot of different sports competing for everybody's attention. You got specialization. You know, it's to get the numbers. It has to be an asset to have everybody kind of working together.
I think it's a little bit of a juggling act. It's, you know, when you talk about sports specialization, you know, you see that more at the larger schools in the county. You know, Roy would attest to at Jeanette and certainly at Derry being what would be considered a smaller school. I know Roy does, and I encourage our players to go participate in other sports. I say that I want athletes playing football at Derry. And yeah, we have a couple kids who aren't interested in playing other sports, who lift year round and what have you. But the vast majority of our football players are playing other sports, which I like it that way.
That's really, I mean, we've all grown up with that being the case. With multi-sport athletes, you know, I went to a smaller school as well. There's a benefit to it too, isn't there? Is there not?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, especially like with football. It helps with the basketball, and basketball helps with baseball. And all our coaches, we all know each other, and we do. We try to work with each other. Like, for example, we're doing our summer workouts, and Coach Batch has his summer basketball. He'll schedule his basketball on our off days, and we work together. Actually, he calls me every day, and, you know, when we schedule each other, because we know we're a small school. Actually, this year, we graduated, boys and girls, 46 students.
Wow. That's incredible to see everything that the school district has accomplished. I mean, state championship and all the other success and all the other athletic programs with with 46 seniors.
Yes,
that's an incredible feat.
And remember, 46 seniors. That's
boys and girls.
Boys and girls, right? Exactly. Tim, you've been at all levels of football. And I know there's always a lot of stories when you talk about playing multiple sports and the benefits of it. There's always stories of guys that come in, coaches that come in and recruit, and they actually like to see a recruit in another element almost, see their athleticism playing another sport.
Yeah, I think I saw an article after the NFL draft this year that out of the 32 players that were drafted in the first round, 30 of them were multi-sport athletes in high school. And you're starting to see more and more medical stories coming out saying, you know what, it's not good to just concentrate on one sport, you know, where you need to use other muscles in your bodies. That sometimes if you just concentrate on one, it's a little too taxing on, you know, certain areas of your body or what muscles you might be using. And, you know, I'm a firm believer in that, you know, kids need to be playing other sports.
Well, I believe, excuse me, Mike, you know, number one, when you're playing other sports, you're developing muscles that you're not using in other sports. And talking to an orthopedic surgeon one time, you know, he told me that you see a lot more ACLs now than you ever did before because these kids are playing one sport and those muscles aren't developing and you're ripping and tearing muscles that normally years ago that wouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, Larry, as we look ahead to this game tomorrow, the Foothills Football Classic, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff here on WHJB. It's been a great year for local high school football in Westmoreland County. I mean, we have two very successful coaches here with a state championship and a second straight playoff appearance at Derry. Of course, we had another school. I know you're a Franklin Regional guy, but that other school on the 22 corridor, Ben Trafford playing for and coming down to the final seconds in a Whitfield championship game. The state of the sport, particularly in Westmoreland County, it's been a very successful year. A lot to look back on, a lot to celebrate.
Yeah, a lot to celebrate for sure. We've got very good teams. We've got a state champion in Jeanette. And many of our teams made the playoffs and made a good run into the playoffs. So we've got a lot to be proud of here in Westmoreland County.
Tim Sweeney, head coach at Derry. You don't get an opportunity to see Jeanette very often, so this will be an opportunity to coach against Roy Hall and some of his coaching staff. Your impressions on the job?
We don't want to see Jeanette. Okay? We don't want to play Jeanette.
So your impressions of just the success that he's enjoyed in his time at Jeanette, and then capping it off here this year with a state championship as well.
It's the epitome of football in the state, and I salute Roy and his staff and all of his players, and they do things the right way at Jeanette, and it's just I love everything about what they do, the way that they conduct themselves. And they're a model program. Yeah, they're a smaller school, but that doesn't matter. The model that Roy has would be successful at Derry. It would be successful at Penn Trafford or at any level. And like I said, I just tip my hat to those guys. And hopefully one day Derry gets an opportunity to do some of the things that they do at Jeanette.
And Roy, I mean, it's amazing what he's done in just 4 years now, right? At Derry, 2014, 2 straight playoff appearances. A lot of great things happening out at Derry under Tim's direction. Just give me a feel for what you've observed from Derry and Tim and the way that he's built his program.
Well, I can honestly say, I was a fan of Tim coaching because I love to see programs that wasn't where they were and how Tim has turned them around. I mean, the playoff, and believe me, some of the games he's had after our game, we would always want to see what Derry did and some of the local teams. Because one thing, we all have our own team, but like during the playoffs, we're always rooting for your county teams. I mean, I was rooting for Derry because I know Tim does a great job. I could tell just by what I hear and what I see. You could just tell by the way he talks that he's a great guy, great coach. You
guys have had different experiences, but also different types of challenges when it comes to your own programs. Roy, you had the challenge. It's a whole different thing to carry on the long tradition and the expectations that you guys have on a year-to-year basis. What was that like to take on that duty and that responsibility and to keep it going too? And that's a big responsibility. And it's a lot of pressure to keep it going from what's been built ahead of it.
I was just talking to Larry. We was talking at dinner tonight. Larry's a Jeanette alum, and I was talking to him and Greg Blotta. My first year as a coach, we didn't make the playoffs. That was the first time in 16 years. Really kind of wanted to kind of run me out at first, but they backed me. Held in there and we went on. And like I was telling Greg today, a lot of teams say, man, we'd like to make the playoffs. Well, that's a given, isn't it? I mean, that's given. You're looking beyond the playoffs. You want to go on. So, we've taken it and we grasped it. I have a great coaching staff. They've been together. We've been together. Some of them, like my brother-in-law, he's been on 24 years he's been there. Jeremy Benikoski, over 15 years. And we all have some kind of tie to Jeanette. And, that's what makes it go.
I always like to say it all starts with that midget program.
Yes.
It really does. Jimmy tries to take a lot of credit for that.
He was coach down there.
But what was the most important thing to you when you were coming into your head coaching role? And it was obviously knowing you're trying to continue a tradition, but you have to establish your own program as well. What was most important to you at that time in kind of establishing yourself and establishing your own program in that mold?
I think getting the coaches, your assistants in place, getting the ones that you can believe in. And when you got coaches that came up through your program or the coaches that you can depend on and are loyal to you, I think that means so much. I coached with Ray Ritz. I started with Ray Ritz. And one of the things is it just started. Like when Coach Musi was there, his assistant was Art Traeger. Art Traeger took over there. Then Bob Murphy took over him. Then it was Ray Ritz and me. And so we just kept, the trend just kept on going. And we all, to this day, still keep in contact with each other. And I've leaned on a lot of those guys, whenever I needed something to keep us going.
You both have succeeded with different types of challenges, as we said. Tim, you had a different challenge in that you had to kind of bring back some of the glory that you remembered from when you played at Derry. What was the most important thing when you were trying to come in and establish your program and kind of lay that foundation?
I think there's a process to it, and the first thing we wanted to try to instill in our players was try to build some confidence and self-esteem. And there are certain ways that you can do it, but ultimately you don't know until you get over the hump and win that first game. And when we were fortunate enough to win our first game, which was the third game of that season in 2014, it was an interesting experience to watch kids who haven't had success at football because they didn't know how to celebrate in the locker room. And, you know, I mean, kids were crying, kids were sitting there with their helmets and their uniforms on, and, you know, and not that I'm being cavalier about it, but I'm like, come on, guys, you got to celebrate. I mean, you got to, you know, let's make some noise, let's smile, let's expect to get this feeling. But they need to understand that all the hard work that they put in, this is why you put it in. And that's what makes, you know, our chosen sport of football so special, is because you work so hard throughout particularly the summer months to prepare to play, you know, nine games or 10 games or whatever the case may be. Whereas other sports, you know, the kids work just as hard as the football players do, but they play a lot of games. Football, you know, in AAA, in the conference that we were in, there was only a couple teams that were making the playoffs, you know, and there could be a third from our conference, but it would have to be a wild card. And so it wasn't an easy road for us to make the playoffs, and it's a testament to the kids in our locker room and their commitment to the program and how hard they've worked over the past few years.
Is there something to be said, you know, obviously it always comes down to talent. Talent wins a lot of things, but you also have to learn how to win too. There's something about making plays at key times in games, not making the key mistake at key times.
Yeah, and
it's a learning process, isn't it?
You have to learn to win, and again, that's maybe another benefit of playing multiple sports, is kids that are successful on the wrestling mat. And as Roy talked about how he works with his basketball coach in the summer, well, we do the same thing at Derry. And a lot of our football players are wrestlers, and we have a wonderful wrestling program at Derry. A lot of our football players play volleyball, and they do really well at volleyball. And so they were having success at those sports. So we just had to get them confident in playing football, and we were able to do that. And you know, the credit goes to my staff, and I've learned more about the game of football from my staff than what they would ever learn from me. So I'm lucky in that respect as well.
What's it like from where you started to now seeing that stadium on Friday nights with the excitement and a full house many nights, and to see when you guys were in the playoffs, watching how many people traveled with you, the whole town traveled with you?
We have wonderful fans, and not to say that we have the best fans in the county, but I think we have the best fans in the county. Roy's going to tell you that Jeanette does, and Larry's going to tell you that Franklin does. But that's the pride that we have in our towns in the county, and that's what makes Larry bringing back the Foothills Classic so special. It is a showcase, and for some of the players, they're going to go on to play college, and I hope every one of them plays in the NFL. But some of them, it's going to be the last time they play organized football. And I told our kids the other night, I'm like, listen, the last time you take off your helmet and shoulder pads, for the last time, it's not like you're a basketball player. You can go get in some really competitive basketball games or baseball. In the Latrobe and Derry area, they have an old timers league, and guys that are 40 and 50 years old are still playing somewhat competitive baseball. Whenever you take that football helmet off and shoulder pads off for the last time in an organized fashion, that's it. And it's something that is special, and it should be treated as such.
Roy, do you remember the last time you had the pads on?
Well, it was a while ago. I mean, I did. Actually, my senior year, we won the WPL championship. At that time, we didn't have the state championship playoffs, but we had a very good team. I used that sometimes to help motivate our kids and tell them what it was like. You know what I mean? And when you say win, sometimes they say winning is not everything. But I tie it to winning. When winning is making good grades, winning is going out and doing something for mom and dad. And it's not just about sports, but football is the ultimate team sport.
All right, we've got much more coming up this evening here. It's the Foothills Classic Preview Show, sponsored by the Collision Shop by Jason Mignon. Don't forget, you can buy tickets right at the gate tomorrow at Hempfield High School. We will have the game for you, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff here on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. We're back with more right after this. Welcome back to the Foothills Classic Preview Show, sponsored by the Collision Shop by Jason Mignon, Mike Zappone, Jimmy Lee Santorella, joined by Westmoreland County Coaches Association President Larry Salito, and also the coaches for tomorrow night's All-Star Game, Roy Hall from Jeanette and Tim Sweeney from Derry. Kickoff tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at Hempfield Spartan Stadium. 6:30 is the pregame show right here on 107.1 WHJB. We'll start things off this segment here with Larry Salito. Larry, we talked a little bit about this. We talked about tickets. We talked about the scholarship fund. Explain about this neat tumbler here that you can purchase if you're here at tomorrow's game, and the great cause that it goes into. And the great benefit for the people that buy it, too.
Absolutely. We were able to partner up with Dunkin' Donuts, and they put together a 22-ounce cup for us. It's an acrylic cup with the logo of every school in Westmoreland County, all 19 schools. And the cost of the cup is $20. But what that $20 gets you is we're going to put X number of dollars back into the Foothills Classic itself to pay for that. The hosting school will get $5 for every mug that's sold from their school, and then the rest pays for the mug. The benefit of the mug is for the next year until May 1st of 2019, you can go back and forth to any Western Pennsylvania Dunkin' Donuts with this mug and have a $1.49 refill of either hot coffee, hot tea, or iced tea as many times a day as you would like. So it benefits everybody. It's a win situation for everyone involved. And we, as we were talking earlier, Mike, about tweaking, this was one of the tweaks that we decided to come up with to help fundraise and also help out schools that host different events for us when they sell them, that their program specifically would get $5 for each mug that was sold.
It really is. Logistically, it's a big undertaking to put something like this on, particularly outside of the school year as well.
Yes, absolutely a big undertaking. And this helps us to kind of put back some of the costs and, again, give back to the kids, because the money that goes to the County Coaches Association goes into that scholarship fund, which helps us to build towards next year.
So tell me about some of the things that this year it happens to be Hempfield, but some of the things that go into the preparation that, it's beyond just flipping the lights on and letting them go out and play. I know that.
There's a lot. The planning, the volunteers, getting them all organized into different positions, who's going to be running what, crowd control kind of issues, security, which Hempfield is doing a great job aligning for us. So there's a whole lot. Coordinating the trainers through Excella. Excella handles the game for us as they did last year, and they'll be handling all the training. Doc McMasters and I think 2 of his staff will attend the game in case there are other injuries, plus they want to just come to the game to watch the game. So it's a lot of planning and a lot of hustling to get the right people in the right places. But so far, knock on wood, I think we're moving nicely towards Friday night.
Well, let's talk about the game a little bit. Now, a lot of times when you have basically all-star games, rules are tweaked for safety reasons. If you're coming to the game tomorrow night, you're going to notice that not everything is what you would expect in a normal football game, a high school football game. So what are some of the rules that you guys have to tweak to, Yeah, good.
I'm going to defer that to the head coaches.
Yeah.
Okay, because they're the ones that are implementing the changes. What I can say is that what we've done, again, as last year, is we're following WPIL, PIAA, and national high school rules. So everything is uniform, but there's a few little nuances that WPIL and PIAA have kind of encouraged. The Big 33 uses and the East-West All-Star Game use that we're incorporating.
And what are some of those? Tim?
Defensively, we have to play man coverage and there's a certain depth where your defensive backs have to line up. They can't align any deeper than 7 yards. There's alignment things with the defensive fronts as far as where where the defensive linemen and the linebackers can align. There isn't any blitzing, and I think that's a pretty fair rule because we don't want to blitz a quarterback and get a quarterback hurt in an all-star game or blindside, or what have you, and those kinds of things. And then Larry doesn't know this yet, but my defensive coaches for the red team, we're going to petition the WCCA to put in the Robert Kennedy rule because we want to play with 13 guys on Friday night on defense. So, but Larry doesn't know that's coming yet. But hopefully we can get him to agree, or at least maybe Roy will, just out of the spirit of keeping it close.
Okay, Roy. Now, how do you counteract that?
Well, the thing is, like last year, we felt pretty confident going into the game. I was on the staff last year, and they blanked us. I mean, we didn't score a touchdown. So, you still got to go play the game. Yes, I mean, Robert is a great player, but, I mean, I'm going to be the first one to tell you, we got some other good players on the squad, though, too, but Robert is a special player, and I'm sure Tim's going to be geared up for him, though, to start.
Boogie right, boogie left.
Yeah.
Roy, what's the biggest challenge for you in coaching this type of format and this type of game?
Well, one of the biggest challenges was, and honestly, I wouldn't be able to do it, without Larry's help. I mean, it was like contacting the kids, trying to make sure we can get the schedule together for practice. Because, the kids, they got their summer. I mean, some of them work, going on vacation. They got other things going on and everything. And I think I was really a little nervous going in, making sure everything was going to work out all right. But with the help of Larry, I mean, it helped out. I mean, and Coach Bada, we're out there at Franklin. And some of the times they'll say, well, Coach Bada, he's there to help us big time. He's my assistant, but sometimes, he's so used to being the head coach, he wants to go in, and sometimes you got to remind, hey, Coach, you want to step back a second a little bit?
Tim, for you, is the biggest challenge making sure you kind of divide out the plays the right way, you get everybody involved in the game? Is it, dealing with making sure that you stay in line with some of the special rules? What is the biggest thing that you look at?
Well, the other coaches who aren't part of the blue staff or the red staff will be there Friday night, and they'll be given a job and to support the game. And one of the things that they'll do is make sure that each player plays 15 plays. So that's something that's done that that I think is a good thing as well.
What did you guys want to accomplish with your practices this week? I mean, it's been a while since a lot of these guys have hit and have been on the field.
Yeah, it's there's a fine line between hitting too much, but you still want to get the cobwebs out. So Tuesday practice we went full pads, knowing that they're going to be sore Wednesday, so we kind of lightened up Wednesday, and Thursday's a walkthrough, and we have some other things as part of the game and the experience Thursday after our walkthrough. And you just try your best to prepare them. You keep it simple. Defensively, it's fairly simple. Offense is a little more complex. Maybe a little bit lags behind the progress of the defense throughout the week. But these guys are all stars, and they've been coached all really, really well at their high schools, and so they kind of pick up fairly quickly.
Roy, any challenges to getting guys into as close as they can into football shape? I mean, there's in shape and then there's football shape.
That's true. I mean, that's what we tell them. I mean, really, less than a week, how much shape are you going to get them into? You can get them a little bit, used to a little bit of hitting and stuff like that. But as far as shape, I would say the majority of these kids been doing something, some kind of working out and stuff like that. So if you think you're going to go in 1 week and get these guys in football shape, it's not going to happen.
We saw it last year. I mean, without getting into details, this stuff gets emotional really fast. I mean, we can say it's fun, it's the all-star game, and it is fun, but the competitive juices go pretty quick once you've kicked that ball off, I would assume. I mean, you kind of kick into gear, and it's another game at that point, right?
Yeah, if you're gonna do something, you might as well do it to win it. I mean, why put in the time to do something if you're not gonna put your best foot forward and try your best to win?
Roy, how do you I mean, does it pick up pretty quickly? I mean, the intensity picks up pretty quickly once everybody gets going out there?
Oh yeah, like it's just like with anything, any sport they play or whatever. You practice. You're going against the same guys. Then you want to go against somebody new. And hey, I mean, you're in the game. You're in it to win. I mean, everybody, they're all competitive, and that's what they want to do. Just like Tim said, we want to go. But I mean, we want to keep it clean. I mean, we want to win. But at the end of the night, no matter who wins or loses, we're still going to shake hands and tell each other did a good job.
One thing is these kids, they're athletes. And athletes want to compete. They want to win. If you're an athlete, you're a football player, and you haven't touched a football for 4 months, you get on that field for this little all-star game, you want to perform. You want to do your best. You want to show what you can do. And that's just being competitive. That's just being an athlete.
On the Foothills Football Classic preview show, sponsored by the Collision Shop by Jason Mignon, Mike Zappone, joined by Jimmy Lee Santorella, Roy Hall, Tim Sweeney, and Larry Solito from the Westmoreland County Coaches Association. Larry, I think one of the neat things we talked about last year through the practice week is you do get a chance to mix kids from all different schools. They get a chance to get to know somebody different than their teammates. It really does. It kind of builds some bonds even in a short period of time during this week, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. I've gotten feedback. You asked me earlier, Mike, about any positive feedback or feedback in general. The best feedback that I've gotten from parents and coaches that were particularly on the Red Squad last year was that those kids bonded so well. They fish together now. They go hunting together. They've really connected and carried it beyond June 9th of 2016. Or 2017. They've really carried this thing into the future. And we talked about that. I spoke about that at our banquet last year on a Thursday evening about these are bonds that you're going to keep the rest of your life. No matter if you put the helmet down after this game or you continue to play on. And they much attribute to the staff, last year. The kids really bonded and have come together. And it's always heartwarming to hear that from different schools, different programs, different levels of functioning, that they were able to connect at one singular point and move forward.
Roy and Tim, have you noticed that this week? And does it surprise you how, they do run into each other in some different sports as well, but how quickly that bond develops in just a short period of time? I mean, it's a couple days of practice is really all it is.
With social media, they all know a lot of different
yeah, right.
like that. But one of the things that, last year, I was assistant coach, and this year, being the head coach, but still, I'm just part of the coaching staff like everybody else. What I see is real impressive is it made me feel good as a coach at Jeanette too. Like, we had 10 or 15 kids personally come up to, hey, Coach Hall, is there any way I can get a Jayhawk sticker for their helmet? Because we share stickers with each other, but I just don't have enough. If I give enough of them out, I won't have enough for our kids' helmets. It feels good to know that they like to, share and they want the Jayhawk helmets.
Who was the player last year that had a helmet that had all the stickers on? You remember that?
I do believe it was the quarterback from Central.
I think you're right.
I think you're right.
I think you are right.
Yeah, I think that's who it was.
I do remember that. Tim, just what's been your observation this week and kind of getting all these kids together in just a short period of time?
It's nice to see them come together and interact. The same is true on the blue team for the red team. You have, one of the best rival football games in the county is Hempfield playing Greensburg-Salem, and we have a nice rivalry with Latrobe. We have a nice rivalry with Mount Pleasant, and there's Valley and Burrell, which is a great rivalry. So we have all those rival schools on the same team with players representing their schools. And but they put that aside. I think the rivalries are great while they're in high school, but now that they've graduated, they're already showing signs of the maturation that comes as part of that I really dislike that guy because he was my rival, but now that he's on my team, he's actually a pretty cool guy. And I think the kids start to realize that about each other, that they're more similar than they are dislike each other. So.
What has been, I'm going to put you guys on the spot just a little bit because I know we got a lot of names here. We got 61 names. We only have a certain amount of time. Roy, as you guys have gotten your team together this week, has there been anybody outside of your own kids that you've been able to watch this week and kind of jumps out at you, seeing them in person and the way that they play?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of bad with names, and we didn't get the opportunity to put the names on them. But I tell you what, I'll be honest, there's some kids from Franklin, Norwin, that really stick out to me playing Bell Vernon. I mean, there's some good ball players. I said to Greg today, I said, man, can you imagine if this was our regular team all year, you know? I mean, so, I mean, there's some great kids. See at Jeanette, we didn't have one lineman over 200 pounds. And when you see some guys here 250, 60 pounds, that's nice to see.
Yeah, it gives you a little sense of security there, doesn't it?
Yes.
You talked about a couple of the guys from Franklin Regional. I mean, one that jumps out to me right off the page is Bryce Lauer. I mean, that kid was,
Yes.
what do you have, like 3,000 tackles this year, I think? I mean, he was like 20-some tackles every single game. I don't know how much of a feel you get for him with what you're able to do in practice this week, but pretty impressive kid when you look at what he was able to accomplish.
If we had somebody like that size at Jeanette, they're automatically on the line. You know what I mean? Offense,
Right.
defensive line. The way he moves at linebacker, covered, backs out of backfield and stuff like that, very, very impressive. And it just goes to show you, what type of athletes there are in the county. I mean, and they look good. He looks good. Very nice kid. And I'm very impressed with how well our kids got along. You know what I mean? They talking with each other, this, that, and pelling around with each other and everything. It's very good to see.
Tim, without putting you on the spot too much, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Anybody besides the Derry Trojan that you've been able to watch this week and that really jumps out at you? And
Yeah, there's a few kids, and you hate to single some kids out because they're all tremendous football players. But guys that from a practice standpoint that I thought have practiced very well are Ivan Etienne from Latrobe. Had a nice week of practice. Brock, and it's hard to get these guys' last names, but So I'm looking at Brock Barnhart from Hempfield has really stepped up as a leader of our defense, playing at Mike linebacker, just a hard-nosed, typical Mike linebacker kid that wants the field width-wise to go from 53 1/3 yards down to probably 10 yards because he's just one of those bulls in the middle. And those two really stood out in my observation.
now you also have the opportunity now to coach a couple of your own players, and you've been with these guys for 4 years. You've seen them grow up really into future college students and potentially college athletes as well. So tell me about Sean Broadway and Ryan Polinsky, since you have such a knowledge of them over the years.
Well, when we were hired in 2014, we had only 5 freshmen on our football team. We had 31 kids on our roster. Both Ryan and Sean were 2 of those 5. They stuck with the program, and the class grew a little bit, but we had a small class graduating this past year from Derry. Sean is one of those multiple sport athletes. Went to the States in wrestling. Certainly as a football player, he was an all-conference corner for us 2 years in a row, but he's been to the States wrestling, I think 2 or 3 times. He finished second in the state just a couple weeks ago in the 300-meter hurdles. I mean, he's just a tremendous athlete. Ryan, on the other hand, does play baseball as well as football, but he was our field general at quarterback. There wasn't more of a team player who accepted his role because he was so valuable to our team that we couldn't play him on defense. As he knows, and I've said in some of our banquets, that he's going down as the winningest quarterback in the history of the school with 21 games. And for a starting quarterback to win 21 games in 2 years is pretty impressive. A testament to him, and they were both captains their senior years, so they're both high-quality guys.
Roy, I give you a chance now. You can brag on your guys a little bit now, the guys that you've had such a connection with over these years and had so much success with as well. Robert Kennedy, Ian Smith, Bryce John, Jalen Jones, Oakley Tiger, Trey Cunningham. That's your representatives from Jeanette. Kind of go through and tell me a little bit about those guys and some of maybe something that we don't know about them already because we've done so many of their games.
We had one like I'll top off. I mean, there's not much to say that everybody doesn't know about Robert. I mean, tremendous athlete, small school, Mr. Pennsylvania, football. He's a great athlete, and he can play any position. I mean, and offensively, defensively, and he's a tremendous leader also. One of the guys that too many people know too much about is Ian Smith, because we're so small at times. We had to play him on the line, and he accepted that role. And anywhere else. He could be a tight end. He could stand and jump a 4-foot fence without stepping. I mean, he's a great athlete. I mean, Larry can attest to that. See him just practice this week. I mean, he's a great kid. I mean, but he accepted the role to help out. He wanted to win first. So how many guys that could be a skill player would go to the line without having a problem? He was willing to do that for us. We have two guys that played some for us. You have Oakley Tiger, which he came around. He's a nice-sized kid, but he wasn't like at first a starter, but he worked his way. He worked his butt off. And then we have Bryce Johns. He also wrestled, not this past year, but the year before. He plays a big role. He played a big role for us on special teams. Then we have Jalen Jones, which is tremendous. I mean, he has speed, quickness, and when you have guys like that, that's what helps you win the state title, which that's what they did. And then there's Trey Cunningham. I mean, you know, we had Terrell Pryor. He was a standout in football and basketball, tremendous. Now, I'm not saying that Trey's a Terrell Pryor, but he was a 3-sport athlete, student athlete, makes good grades, tremendous football player, tremendous baseball player, and basketball player too. He actually made the MVP in the round ball in basketball. Last year he helped the baseball team win Jeanette's first WPIL championship in baseball, and he's just the sky's the limit with him. And actually, I really got the first chance in football to be up close. It looked like he grew 2 more inches. I mean, he does. I mean, and Larry's seen it today. He was punting. I mean, I believe, honestly, he could go to Division I and punt the ball.
Well, with just a few minutes left, I mean, this also gives us a chance to having 3 great voices for the high school game in the Whitfield as well as Westmoreland County here. As you guys look ahead, what stands out to you? What's the story, if there's a storyline or if there's something that you're going to be following that's going to be important to the sport this year, the high school level? What is it that you guys are going to be looking at? The thing that's the most interesting storyline that you'll be looking at this year?
The continued success, for me, the continued success of the county with gentlemen like Tim and Roy, how their programs continue to grow and other programs around them grow along with them. That's kind of my most interesting storyline.
Roy and Tim, from the coaching side of it, anything from a rules perspective, anything different this year that you guys are going to be watching this year as opposed to others that could become a storyline?
Well, they have this new rule, and actually I don't even know the name of it, where everybody has to sit through like a 6-hour training thing. And and then, you know, believe me, if any coaches are in it to get rich, it's just not going to happen. You're not in it for the money. You're in it to help kids and see what you can do. But like, you know, a lot of them, you know, if the coaches, to get this, they have to pay it. You know what I mean? A lot of schools don't pay it. You got to pay it out of your own pocket. And I just say it's a testament to a lot of the coaches to what they do. People don't have no idea what some coaches sacrifice to do for the kids.
It is. It's becoming more and more of a challenge in many areas. I mean, you see it all the time. To see the guys that you will have on your coaching staffs tomorrow night and the amount of hours and the amount of effort and dedication that they put into it, I know you have to have a special appreciation for that above anybody else.
Without question, like, you know, last year in our, you know, being part of the Red staff, just sitting around listening to these coaches talk, I mean, it was just, I was a sponge, just absorbing how much knowledge these coaches have and listening to them talk. And, you know, I just sit there and sometimes I don't feel like I have a lot to contribute. That I'm just kind of like, you know, getting all their knowledge and, you know, what have you. But so it's nice to sit around with other coaches and get to know them, not only on an X's and O's basis, but to get to know them on a personal level, which is really nice.
Larry, one last time, just a chance if they want to pick up tickets, if you want to order them and have them waiting for you at the gate tomorrow night at the Spartan Stadium, what's the number to call, ticket prices, and how they can get them on game night as well?
On game night, they can contact me and we'll reserve tickets for them. Tickets are $7 for adults, $5 for students. We're hoping for a big crowd like last year.
Yeah, great opportunity to see some of the best in Westmoreland County going at it tomorrow night. Great skill on the field, lots of offense. Should be a fun evening tomorrow night for sure. We're certainly looking forward to it. Our thanks to Larry Solito, Tim Sweeney, and Roy Hall for joining us tonight. Good luck to all of you tomorrow with your kids, as well as putting on a great show tomorrow night. Enjoy the evening over at Spartan Stadium. We'll have all of the action coming up for you right here on 107.1 WHJB. Pre-game at 6:30, kickoff at 7 o'clock. Join me and Jimmy Lee then. For Jimmy Lee Santorella, this is Mike Zappone saying so long until tomorrow night's pre-game show here on WHJB 107.1.